Hi, my name is Melissa Strong, and I'm in my first semester here at Wake Tech. I'm actually in the Global Logistics Technology program, but my faculty advisor, Professor Rahman, suggested that business analytics is kind of where it's at these days. So she suggested that I take the intro course to see what I thought, and it turns out I really like it. As part of my background, I have my bachelor's in political science from FSU and then my law degree from Georgetown University. So I have no background at all in statistics. I've never taken a statistics course. I've never done any sort of data analysis. And so in the introduction course, we kind of learn about descriptive analytics. We learn about how to take vast amounts of data and then just kind of turn it into something that's a little bit easier to look at, a little bit easier to understand. So in doing my project, I was thinking about how my relationship with my husband has changed over the past 7.5 years. I've known him for 7.5 years now, and in that period of time, we were long distance, and then we lived together while we were engaged and then married, and then we found out that we were expecting a child. And so for the past year and 8 or 9 months or so, has been this new chapter in our lives. So without further ado, here is the first time period that we're looking at, which is where we were long distance. What I did was I realized that we've got this treasure trove of data in our relationship, in emails that I've sent to him over the years, right? And so I took these emails and just entered them into a word cloud generator. And what it does is it just takes this raw data, this raw text, and it turns it into this beautiful graphic where the words that you said more often end up larger, and the words that you don't say as often, they end up smaller, right? So the first thing that you notice here is that it's just this adorable little snapshot of my life, right? Whenever I was dating my husband long distance, you see the word love shows up. Huge. It dwarfs all the other words. And then you see other really cute little words in here like, so there's love. You see other really cute words in here like, here's happy and silly, and then, eyes, and a couple embarrassing things show up like Prince. Why did I say that? But it's a good way to look at this data, right? The things that I would say to him in emails. And then you can see here, it shows up that the word love was said 213 times over this 1.5 to 2 year period. The next most often said word is about, which is kind of a nonsense word, but it shows up a little bit more than half that. I also say my husband's name, which is Daniel, a good number of times. And so this time period, right, it's just this adorable little snapshot into my life. Well, after about 1.5 to 2 years, he moved up to be with me in DC. And then, we were dating for a while. We got engaged. We got married. We moved down to Cary. All these things were happening in our lives. So let's see how things changed. Okay, there we go. Okay, so that's still nice, right? Love, it still shows up. So does like. You see other words that kind of show up that weren't there before, like the word today. That's not going to be in the old one because whenever we were long distance, there was no today. There was just 2 weeks from now or 2 weeks ago. There's no today. What else shows up? Beer shows up. There's tax, which is one of the classes I was taking at the time. Some other really nice words like home. That one shows up a lot because, all of a sudden, together we have this home. All right. The first thing you notice here is that love only shows up 49 times as compared to the more than 200 times that showed up before. What happened? What happened? Do I love him a quarter of the amount that I loved him before? Or is it just that I was probably sending fewer emails? Because whenever you live with somebody, you're not going to be sending emails all the time. You'll just say, hey, I love you, when you get home from work. I'm not going to say, oh, hold on 1 second. I'm going to go write an email real quick. But you also see, other words like want, today, home, pretty. Grits shows up. So one of the things I learned whenever I was putting these word clouds together was that it'll kind of bring in words that you didn't realize you talked about a lot. Whenever my husband moved in with me, he took over all the cooking. I'm a horrible cook. And so he took over all the cooking, and he introduced me to the wonder of Southern breakfast foods. So you see up there is grits and coffee, apparently some of my very favorite things. I talked about them a lot. And then in about February of 2014, we found out that we were expecting a child, and things changed a little. Next slide. Things changed a lot. The first thing you notice is that maybe I've become a little demanding in motherhood, right? Where's the love? Well, It's in there, it's just really little. So I said it here and there, but not nearly as much as I said things like want and need. One other thing that you might notice is that my son's name, Gavin, shows up a lot, but my husband's name doesn't show up at all. So I decided I don't have time for greetings anymore. I want, I need, that's it. No thank yous even. Some other things show up too, which kind of paints like a sad picture of parenthood, right? You've got things like sad and tired. And then a lot of time talk comes in. So we've got hours here and minutes. You realize that whenever you've got a newborn, sometimes time seems to crawl. Next slide. Okay, want shows up 47 times. That's almost as much as love showed up in the last slide, right? Love shows up only slightly more often than grits did. So that brings me to the next thing that we learned in this Intro to Analytics course, which is that you have to be really careful with your data, right? Because when you look at these things, you think, oh my gosh, having a child was probably the worst thing that ever happened in her marriage. And the question is this really, does this mean this was really bad news for my marriage? Not at all, not at all. Because what you realize is that one of the things that Dr. Shaw made sure that we learned was that correlation doesn't equal causation, right? You think, what happened in this time period that I'm covering here? Well, first of all, we moved in together, so the volume of emails that were sent is going to be a lot lower. We got smartphones, so instead of sending emails, we probably just sent off a text, you know. And then I was taking care of a newborn. So instead of sitting down to write love letters to my husband, the times that I'm going to be sending emails is going to be usually bad news. Like, I want you to take some time to read this before, you know, we have the discussion. But if I'm going to say things like, I love you or I appreciate you, I'll send that in a text. It's going to be a lot easier. So it's not necessarily that my marriage is falling apart. It's just that you have to be careful in terms of how you analyze your data. Is this an accurate representation of the emails I sent my husband? Absolutely. Is it an accurate representation of my relationship? Not necessarily. So that's what we learned in intro. Thank you.